to build up my view to try to have a conversation that goes beyond the
Okay.
talking points on this. So if we
Well,
start
that's
from
not
the
a talking point. That's
that we-
actual crimes. We just asked Laken Riley's family down in Georgia.
Yeah.
All right.
No, I'm
I guess it doesn't
correcting
really, if
you.
want
Like
me to talk, it's fine.
I want you to talk, but you're casting an aspersion that I'm spewing out some sort of talking points to you, and I'm saying actual Americans are being killed. It's not a talking point.
We're not really digging more deeply here. We're not really digging more deeply. So we have.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're breaking down an absolutely explosive debate between David Pakman and Hogan Gidley on Megyn Kelly's show. We're talking inflation, border security, and the shocking numbers Biden doesn't want you to see. You'll hear wild claims about immigration statistics, why Laken Riley's name matters more than talking points, and who was sabotaging Trump's border wall from the inside. This debate exposes exactly why Americans are fed up with Washington. Make sure you watch until the end. Please comment down where you are watching from. It's great to see people from over the world connecting in here. All right, now let's get into the video.
You know, I have to say that there's so much there. I don't even know that we could go through every single thing, but just to pick where Hogan started on inflation and kind of ridiculing economists and this and that, Hogan just said that because certain things were cheaper under Trump, it's a failure of Biden. Will Hogan acknowledge, therefore, that because those very same goods were cheaper under Obama, Trump also did something wrong?
Well, I'm sure they were cheaper under Grover Cleveland, too. That's not the point.
That's exactly the point.
The point is, where are we now?
You're just making.
Can we get the inflation back to where we were? And the answer is yes, with the right policy.
Are you calling for a deflationary spiral? I mean, here's the thing I don't understand, Megyn, and I'm not asking this rhetorically. I actually want to understand this as someone with a background in economics. If inflation goes below zero, you create a deflationary spiral where people expect things to be cheaper in the future, and so they wait to buy anything, which hurts the economy. This is why.
Let me just add to that. So even Trump said this on the stump just last week. He said we were around 1.4%, which is even better than zero for the exact reasons you just cited. Keep going.
2 to 3 is typically what you want. That's where economic growth comes from. So the thing I struggle with, and I really do want to understand it, because for me, people who know me know I don't play political games with gas prices. I don't play political games with inflation. My view on this is just from economics. The goal from which traditional economics, not Marxist left-wing stuff, traditional economics says you want around 3% inflation, because that is an incentive to buy now rather than later, and it's where wage growth and economic growth comes from. Hogan seems to, I guess, want deflation, which doesn't seem to be good. So just maybe someone who knows more can explain it to me.
No, I guess that's not happening now. Okay, let's go. Let's go back to immigration. Oh, go ahead, Hogan, if you want to.
No, all I was going to say was, regardless of where the target percentage would be, and economists agree and have these conversations all the time, the American people are suffering, and they vote on their pocketbooks, as we all know. And if they realize that prices for things are through the roof compared to where they used to be, they're looking for someone to blame. And while Joe Biden tries to pass the buck consistently, he's the president. And so people will, rightly or wrongly, according to you, blame Joe Biden for it. That's the fallout. You're at the desk. You make the decisions.
I agree on the political analysis 100%. So on that, people vote on their perception of the economy. No argument for me whatsoever, Hogan.
And Trump's got a 20-point lead over Joe Biden on that, according to the latest poll. So they're definitely blaming Joe Biden. And, you know, that is tied to some of the spending he did when he first took over. Trump spent a lot, too. I want to stay on immigration for a minute, though, because Joe Biden is now issuing these executive orders, which he said he couldn't do. And what struck me was he's now going to do, let me get the numbers in front of me. He's going to allow, all right, asylum will be suspended when the threshold reaches an average of 2,500 migrants each day. So he's not going to allow asylum seekers if we have
Hold on. Did David Pakman just try to lecture us about deflationary spirals when families are choosing between groceries and gas? This is exactly what drives me insane about these debates. We've got people sitting at kitchen tables right now trying to figure out how they're going to afford the same cart of groceries that cost them $150 3 years ago and now costs $240. And we're being told, well, actually, you want inflation because traditional economics says, no, stop right there. You know what everyday Americans hear when you say that? Your suffering is actually good for the economy. That's what it sounds like. And Hogan nailed it. People vote on what they're experiencing, not what some economic textbook says should be happening. But here's where this gets absolutely wild. Did you catch those numbers Megyn just dropped? Biden is now saying he'll suspend asylum at 2,500 migrants per day. Let me say that again. 2,500 per day. Obama's own immigration officials said 1,000 a day was a crisis. 1,000 was the red line we couldn't cross. And now we're sitting here normalizing 2,500 like that's just fine? That's 912,500 people a year at that threshold. Nearly 1 million people. And here's the kicker. Biden spent 3 years telling us he legally couldn't use executive orders to control the border. Remember that? My hands are tied. It's Congress's job. I need legislation. And now, magically, in an election year, he can do it? So either he was lying then, or he's admitting he let millions of people flood across our border when he had the power to stop it all along. Which one is it? Because both answers are absolutely devastating. This isn't about being anti-immigrant. This is about a complete abandonment of immigration law and border security. And we're just supposed to accept these astronomical numbers as the new normal? I don't think so.
An average of 2,500 migrants each day. He would lift that suspension when there's a daily average of less than 1,500 encounters. What's amazing to me is I remember anchoring in the chair on Fox when Barack Obama's immigration head said 1,000 a day is a crisis. That is a true crisis. Whatever we do, we can't let it get to 1,000 a day. And now here we are with an influx of over, more than 8 million since then. That's not even counting the numbers that did come in under Trump, though he was committed to trying to stop that. So now here we are with let's call it 10 million, 11. I know the numbers are vastly bigger than that, but let's just call it 10 million. With this president saying 2,500, definitely 1,500 is fine. We won't suspend asylum, which is nuts. I mean, that's absolutely nuts to me, Dave. Why is the threshold anywhere near this high?
This is to me?
Yeah.
Oh, so here's my view on immigration, and I already laid out part of it. I believe that without immigrants, the country collapses, and I think it's abundantly clear. If anything, as far as legal immigration, we probably need to increase it significantly to remain globally competitive, especially as birth rates are starting to decline. Big picture, I think that that's a big issue here. In addition to this, when it comes to the sort of crime narrative, we know from very good studies, both state and federal, both documented and undocumented immigrants commit crime at lower rates than natural-born citizens. Now, I know Trump
even
loves
one
the
is too
lurid
many. Let me just
tales.
take you on that. Well, even one is too many. Why do I have to deal with these illegal immigrants committing felonies against my friends or family when they shouldn't even be here? American-born, that's one thing. I got to deal with Americans. Why should I have to deal with somebody from Venezuela who snuck in here illegally and committed a felony against a family member?
I'm not denying that if they are here illegally, they are subject to deportation, but I'm trying to build up my view to try to have a conversation that goes beyond the talking points on this. So if we start
that's not a talking point. That's actual crimes. We just asked Laken Riley's family down in Georgia.
Yeah.
All right.
No, I
guess it doesn't
correcting
really,
you.
Like you're talk, it's fine.
I want you to talk, but you're casting an aspersion that I'm spewing out some sort of talking points to you, and I'm saying actual Americans are being killed. It's not a talking point.
We're not really digging more deeply here. We're not really digging more deeply. So we have a situation here where obviously we are completely understaffed when it comes to immigration judges and being able to adjudicate these asylum claims. We also have circumstances in people's home countries that we could be better working on at a fraction of what it costs to deal with the problem domestically, which no one ever wants to do. I actually think that one of the great tragedies on this issue is that both Democrats and Republicans, for different reasons, have been unable to get us closer to what we might call a more semi-permanent solution on some of the low-hanging fruit. I mean, even most Republicans I talk to acknowledge the individuals brought here undocumented when they were minors. We're not going to send them back. They need a path to normalization here, whether it's a permanent residency or citizenship. There's so many things everybody agrees on. And for different reasons, either because they don't want their political enemies to get the credit for it or because they want to save it for when they get elected as something to run on, Wait.
Did David Pakman just call Laken Riley a talking point? because that's what just happened. Megyn brings up a 22-year-old nursing student who was murdered by an illegal immigrant from Venezuela, and his response is basically, "You're spewing talking points. That's a real person. That's a real family who will never see their daughter again. And you want to tell me that's not digging deeply into the issue?" Here's what gets me absolutely furious about this argument. Pakman throws out this stat about how undocumented immigrants commit crimes at lower rates than citizens. Okay, fine. Let's say that's true. But Megyn's question destroys that entire argument. Why should any American have to deal with crimes committed by people who shouldn't even be in the country? If someone breaks into your house and steals your TV, you don't get to say, well, statistically, home invaders are less likely to commit crimes than your neighbors, so really this is fine. No, they shouldn't have been in your house in the first place. Every single crime committed by an illegal immigrant is a crime that should have been prevented by border security. Every single one. Laken Riley should be alive today. Kate Steinle should be alive today. These aren't statistics. These are preventable tragedies. And then watch how quickly Pakman pivots. We need more immigration judges. Really? That's the solution? We need to process more people faster? How about we secure the border first, and then talk about who gets to stay? You know what's not a talking point? The fact that Biden could have used executive action 3 years ago and chose not to. He let 8 million people walk across that border. That's more than the population of Virginia. And now he wants credit for maybe, possibly, potentially stopping it at 1,500 a day? 1,500 a day used to be called a crisis. Now it's the goal. And here's the thing that really bothers me. Pakman keeps saying, we all agree on 80% of this. No, we don't. Because the 80% he's talking about is probably amnesty, DACA pathways, and more legal immigration while the border is wide open. Fix the border first. Enforce the law first. Then we can have conversations about everything else. But you don't negotiate with someone who's actively breaking into your house while telling you the lock was fine all along. Laken Riley deserved better. Every American family deserves better.
Deal with probably 80% of this. I think this might be crazy. I think Hogan and I could agree on 80% of this if we were in charge of this. And it's disgusting to me how both sides, to different degrees, end up getting in the way of permanent solutions for political reasons. Now, obviously, as someone on the left, I'm more partial to the view of immigration that I think is more on my side than Hogan's. But that being said, I don't see any progress on this issue because everybody wants to keep reserve and use it to their advantage in a way that goes beyond other issues. And I
Let me ask you about that, Hogan. Let me ask you about that because Trump, as you well know, his biggest critic on immigration is Ann Coulter, who is a dyed-in-the-wool conservative. And she's as angry as anybody about the fact that, as Dave just said, the wall was not built. Now, Trump had constructed some wall, but it was not completed the way Trump promised. And to Dave's point, Trump had control of Congress and the White House. The Republicans had control of Congress and the White House for his first 2 years of his presidency. He actually could have pushed massive reform through on immigration and did not do it.
Yeah, with Paul Ryan as Speaker? I don't think so. I mean, some of the biggest fights we had internally at the White House were with Republicans who did.
Okay, this is where it gets real. And I'm going to say something that might surprise you. Megyn is right to call this out. Ann Coulter is right to be furious. And you know what? This moment right here exposes the real problem with Washington, and it's not what David Pakman thinks it is. Hogan just admitted something that conservatives have been screaming about for years. Paul Ryan and the Republican establishment sabotaged Trump's agenda from inside his own party. Think about that. Trump gets elected on a mandate to build the wall and secure the border. He wins states that hadn't gone Republican in decades. Working-class Americans came out in massive numbers because they were desperate for someone to finally do something about illegal immigration. And what happens? Paul Ryan, the Speaker of the House, a Republican, fights him every step of the way. They had the House, they had the Senate, they had the White House, and the establishment Republicans did everything they could to protect the status quo. You want to know why Trump had to use military funding? Because his own party wouldn't give it to him. Let that sink in. The people who campaigned on border security for decades suddenly got power and said, actually, never mind. This is why the base is so angry. This is why Trump won in 2016 and why he's still the dominant force in Republican politics. Because Republican voters wanted action, and Republican leadership wanted cocktail parties in Georgetown. And here's what David Pakman doesn't understand when he talks about his magical 80% agreement. The establishment on both sides doesn't want solutions. They want the issue. Democrats want it for their base, Republicans wanted it for fundraising emails. Everybody was happy with the broken system except the American people dealing with the consequences. Trump actually tried to fix it and got stabbed in the back by people who were supposed to be on his team. That's not a defense, that's a fact. And it's exactly why the Republican Party had to be completely reshaped from the ground up. You know what the real tragedy is? If Paul Ryan had actually supported Trump's agenda instead of fighting it, we'd have a completed wall right now. We'd have had immigration reform. We wouldn't be sitting here talking about 2,500 illegal crossings a day being considered acceptable. But the swamp protects the swamp. And that's both parties. That's the donor class. That's the consultants. That's everyone who benefits from chaos while Americans suffer. So yeah, Ann Coulter has every right to be furious. Conservative voters have every right to demand accountability. And the next time someone wins on an America First agenda, maybe, just maybe, Republicans in Congress should actually help instead of sabotage. So what do you think of this? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below, and please don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next video.